Okay, so what is a cap rate? It's a metric that is used to determine value and comparative value for a certain kind of property. So let's jump into it, and let's jump into it with AI, because AI knows everything, and it can tell you what it is. And I'd encourage everyone to do this. Use Grok, use ChatGPT, use whichever one you want. But basically, I said, what is a cap rate in the context of property investment, and how is it calculated? And a few minutes later, I've done a deep search on this. The context of property, the cap rate is a key metric used by real estate investors to evaluate potential return on investment, etc., etc. Cap rates help compare properties across markets, assess risk, and typical things that you would expect when you're trying to get a value. The thing to remember: the cap rate. The lower the cap rate, the more valuable and the higher the price of the property. So it's got and it works inversely. So if I have a cap rate of 5%, the property is worth more. If I have a cap rate of 10%, the property is worth less. Okay, so just bear that in mind with the cap rate. It's a bit confusing at first, but you do get used to it. So how do you calculate it? So the cap rate is calculated using the following formula. Cap rate equals net operating income divided by property value times 100. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, net operating income is your annual gross rent minus operating expenses. Now, operating expenses are typically property insurance, property management, maintenance, utilities, property taxes, if I haven't said that already, that kind of thing. But bear in mind, this calculation excludes mortgage debt. So for the purpose of clarity in this calculation, the assumption is that there's no mortgage, because that is more of a personal investment analysis as it is of a general market norm. So you take your gross rental, which is all of the rental income and any other income you derive from the property. It might be, could be on solar panels, it could be this, it could be that. But anyway, take all of the income, which is normally just rental income. Take away all the expenses, property tax, property management, maintenance provision, what other expenses there are. Insurance are the main ones. If you're in a condo, it would be the HOA, and HOAs can be quite considerable in this current market. But if you do have the HOA, you may not have some other expenses like, for example, insurance might be covered in the HOA. So that you just need to figure it out. Anyway, you get to the net income. Once you've got the net income, you divide it by the property value times 100, and it will give you the cap rate. So typically in a market, for example, if in Miami now, if you buy a residential condo, the cap rates are very low, around 3-4% if you're lucky, which means the property is very expensive. And if you flip that around, and if you're buying something at 8, 9, 10%, it's a lot cheaper property. And also one thing just bear in mind, firstly, you can inquire yourself on Grok or ChatGPT or whatever it is, but just from a broader principle point of view, the lower the cap rate, the more expensive the property, and that also normally means the better the property. Higher the cap rate, the cheaper the property, and that normally also means the quality of the property is not as good. So just bear that in mind. Do your own research. When you meet an investor and you're talking property, they are for sure going to say, if it's anyone who's a property professional, will bring up the cap rate as kind of a standard. So just figure it out. If you get stuck, ask us, but at least you should know what it is now. Do a bit more research. All right, great guys. Hope that helped. See you on the next one. Bye.